We set up shuttle points at this location because this is not in use here at the middle school, at the Atlantic Beach Club, and then bus kids and staff from these locations back into the center of town. So we're right now working, our 2 elementary schools are up and running, and all of them have buddies because we have 2 elementary schools that are closed. So all the kids K-12 are being educated, and the high school, middle school is currently sharing the middle school.
Certainly not normalcy here, but probably the first time in a long time kids were dying to get back to school here. And that's the situation in Long Beach, Long Island today. The hard-hit town still just trying to pick up pieces after more than 2 weeks after Sandy slammed the area. Official estimates of how many people driven from their homes here because of Sandy, they vary here between what most say is probably in the 20,000 area, all to 40,000 people. Suggestions of what to do with these displaced populations, it varies as well. You're talking about from inner cities here to shorefront communities up and down our region. In Staten Island, an unlikely situation has arisen here. One solution being thrown out is a prison. The Arthur Kill Correctional Facility was closed last year with a capacity to house and feed 900 people. Officials reportedly eyeing the spot as a temporary housing solution. Meanwhile, you got city, state, federal officials all trying to assemble a pool of vacant apartments in New York City, basically abandoned apartments that could supplement the city's shelter system. Officials reportedly worried about a so-called second surge of housing needs when temperatures drop, forcing holdouts from their homes. And we go over to the Garden State, where there are nearly 900 people still living in shelters here. Officials there looking for maybe even a former military base as a temporary solution in that community. Fort Monmouth, it closed its doors a little over a year ago, but now they're reopening those doors for victims of Sandy. The temporary housing may be open as early as the end of this week. Governor Christie spoke about the plan earlier this week.
Some folks will wind up at Fort Monmouth. Others will wind up in private apartments or homes that they'll get vouchers to help them pay the rent on.
Okay, so guys, we're seeing what some would say creative, others would say desperate solutions here to come up with something as the temps now dip into the 40s, 30s, etc. You got a lot of people that need housing, and we're talking about prisons, military bases, abandoned buildings. And as I understand it, part of the challenge, unlike in Katrina, was you don't have a city like Houston that says basically send us your tired, hungry, and homeless and we'll take care of them. People want to stay in this area, but take Staten Island, for example. There's no hotels that are sitting unused here that they can just take and repurpose. They got to find immediate housing. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at, those FEMA trailers all over again. And where do you even put them? I mean, this is a humanitarian, if not crisis, approaching it. And they're talking about days, weeks, not months here to figure this thing out. So it's a real problem. I mean, when this happened, I didn't do the math in my head as to how many thousands of people, Dominic, but they got to put them somewhere. And they don't have any easy answers. You can tell by what they're grasping at for stopgaps.
That's the bottom line. The temperatures are dropping, as you just indicated, and pretty soon you're not going to be able to stay in your homes in which, it's so unfortunate where walls are missing and the cold air is coming in, and it's children that have to go to school and senior citizens and on and on and on. But you have to put them somewhere. And so vacant apartments throughout the city, I mean, I think we've all seen this where the city with the homeless population, some of them are not bad apartments. Some of them are in very nice areas. Vouchers, you've got to do something. Government, this is the entire purpose of government.
Yep.
You've got to do something. You can't leave people out on the street.
It's certainly far from ideal, but we may actually see a medium range benefit from all this. If some of these vacant buildings and some of these vacant apartments actually get revitalized, even on a temporary basis, it might help. It might help stimulate those neighborhoods where you've had those abandoned buildings before. Yeah, I'm looking for a silver lining in all this, but
I appreciate it, Andrew.
And
but
it's
for
also,
me,
I applaud the out-of-the-box thinking of lawmakers and civic leaders who are coming up with these ideas. I don't know how willing people are going to be to move into an abandoned prison.
Not an 8 by 10 with cages.
To me,
I mean, especially Staten Island.
Concept is one thing, and then all of a sudden, you're throwing your backpack on and you're walking into C block, right? And you're on
but it's better than
the
a school
second tier.
Gymnasium. I mean,
Yeah, but not an area that has been complaining for the last 2.5 weeks that they were forgotten, and FEMA left when the nor'easter came, and now you want to put them in cell
and
block
even
6.
though that story turned out to be more, myth than reality, the imagery stuck.
It's perception.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, guys. This is, and you don't envy the mayor here. You don't envy the governors. They got to do something. And the FEMA trail is well remembered. The horror stories you heard with that, and the illnesses that were attached, and everything else. But they got to do this on the fly. And you can tell we don't have a plan here to accommodate this. So at least maybe something will come out of it. Looking at pictures there from when we went down there. And now you're hearing stories, Dominic, about people, the holdouts, they're dealing with looting concerns. We've heard this in both, in both New Jersey as well as Long Island. And we also heard in Coney Island there were problems as well here. There's security issues. There's safety issues. You can't keep a kid in 30 degrees at night.
But that's the scandal in all of this. Millions are spent on emergency preparedness in terms of what to do. You have an entire industry of people where that's what they do for a living. And so now here we are, granted, we're in the New York region and no one expected this, but you're in a situation where people need an emergency solution. And where's the plan?
But our system and those kinds of plans have never really existed. It's always been on the short term and how to fix the immediate damage. It's for the storm and like the week or two afterwards. But I mean, we saw this exposed in Katrina. We've seen this exposed in other disasters as well. That you really can't plan for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days.
But why not? After Katrina, why not?
Because then you have to stockpile so many resources and have so many things on hold. You could wind up with the situation like where the trailers go bad again.
Let's get a first-hand perspective on this, guys. I want to bring in Gerald Tarantolo. He's the mayor of Eatontown, New Jersey, and he says he suggested the idea of Fort Monmouth, and obviously he's on the ground right now in the Garden State. And Mayor, thanks for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Sure, Richard.
I think desperate times call for desperate actions. I applaud you for the idea here. Just give an idea to the people at home, because we talk about numbers here, but you know these faces, you know these names. How acute of a problem do you have in your hands? How many people need to have a roof over their head that don't have it now?
We have been devastated in this area, not so much in Eatontown, but the shore area towns, they've been absolutely devastated. There's so much devastation and homelessness as a result of the storm that major action has to be taken, and that's why I suggested that Fort Monmouth should be reopened and utilize those resources for providing housing to these people that have lost their homes.
Mayor, I know you've probably had conversations from the feds to the state officials. Is it safe to say that people are out of ideas and they're looking for what to do with it? There is not a plan in place right now. I mean, you had to throw out an idea that they may embrace, but minus that, we got people that they don't have an idea where to put a roof over their heads right now. Is that not an overstatement?
Well, that's not an overstatement. The fact of the matter is Fort Monmouth was closed roughly about 2 years ago. In fact, September of 2011. Much of that housing was occupied up until that period of time. So that housing should essentially be in pretty good shape. It's just a matter of sinking some money, and I say money from FEMA, to get those units activated, and possibly that would provide some of the solution to the homelessness that's been created by the storm.
How quickly could they turn around the fort to make it livable for families and all the residents here who are looking for a roof over their heads?
Well, it's a matter of energizing the units that I've already identified. On Main Post, we have several areas that could be activated. The officers' housing, the bachelor officers' quarters, the NCO housing. There's also some very nice housing that exists on Sun Eagles Golf Course that could be activated and made available to those people that are homeless.
Give an idea for a timetable here. If this thing doesn't get solved or come up with something temporary the next week or two, are we seeing trailers in New Jersey, in seaside communities like the ones you've identified, or is that even worked out yet? I mean, at a certain point, these people are going to freeze. What happens? What kind of timetable are you hearing about?
Well, I'm not hearing really anything. I've been working through the county. The county has asked me to assist them from the point of view as a member of the Fort Monmouth Redevelopment Authority to give them some ideas of how we might resolve or solve the problem of homelessness caused by the storm. It was to them that I proposed activating the homes or the facilities on Fort Monmouth for the purposes of alleviating the devastation that was caused by the storm.
Again, Mayor, I think it's a great idea, but who's in charge? Is it clear to you yet that FEMA's taken point on this, that the guys in Trenton are running the show, or is it left to municipality or at the county level where they got to figure out what to do with thousands, or in this case, hundreds of homeless people?
Well, the human services part of the state is actively involved in this, and I know the county is also involved. I believe that there was a conference call conducted earlier this afternoon, of which I was not a part of, but they were talking strategy and protocol as to how we might set up a plan to alleviate the devastation that's been caused to so many people.
You know, I know you got a whole host of challenges in front of you, and I appreciate a few minutes, Mayor. I think it's a great idea. As we said, desperate times, you got some desperate solutions that hope the folks turn it around for the disenfranchised. Again, Mayor Tarantola, thank you for a few minutes.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We are going to continue the conversation about the aftermath of Sandy in our region. But we're going to be talking about what's going to drive how fast this gets moved, and that is money here. Specifically, you have Governor Cuomo saying he's got a number in mind that he wants from the president who's visiting this region on Thursday. Excuse me, the number, as I said, is 30, and that's with a B, $30 billion that the governor wants from the federal government. We're going to talk about that number here, the likelihood of it coming, and who, at the end, is going to finally pony up. We'll be right back with more on that.